They prided themselves on perfection. The Jernai Ascendancy fleet, 12 flagships strong, 100 cruisers in diamond formation, all basking in the glow of the Xanthari binary cluster, was a monument to centuries of military evolution. Every ship gleamed with fractal armor plating, every course plotted to within a nanosecond, every sensor array so precise it could detect a grain of dust warping subspace. In their minds, this armada was flawless, untouchable. That made what happened next all the more impossible. "Commander, we have a gravitational inconsistency," reported Sub-Admiral Vralik, antennae flicking nervously. "Localized, minimal, but consistent over the last 6 cycles." Fleet Admiral Corinth waved a claw dismissively. "From the binary suns. Local anomalies are expected. Adjust thrusters on formation sigma and resume drift phase." Vralik hesitated. "With respect, Admiral, the anomaly is inside the formation." That got Corintha's attention. "What sector?" "Directly between cruiser Vasari and interdictor Lumek." Corinth turned toward the central holomap, her eyes narrowing. That region was the quiet center of the fleet, protected, idle, where no vessel should be operating without direct command. She keyed the override. "All units identify. Respond to FleetNet ping. Begin immediate deep scan of Sector Theta 11. The feed filled with pings. All ships responded. Except one. In Sector Theta 11, something had been lurking for 3 hours. So, silent. Embedded. It didn't match Jernai architecture. It had no signature, no transponder, no IFF tag. But it was there. And it was massive. "Is it cloaked?" Vralik whispered, fur bristling. "No. Worse," Corinth said coldly. "It's not even pretending to hide. It's just there." The holomap rendered a shape slowly, like reality itself resisted interpreting it. Long, angular. Jagged at the edges like a sword designed in grief. It didn't belong to any known empire. "Life signs?" Corinth asked. "None we can isolate," replied the AI calmly. "But the ship is generating low-band EM, sporadic. Could be targeting systems. Weapons. Unknown. Exterior plating reflects all active scans. No visible cannons, bays, or missile pods. But what? Energy density inside the vessel is off the charts. Comparable to singularity generators. Maybe higher." The Admiral growled. "Scramble squads. Evacuate ships within a 10-kilometer radius. Bring in Dreadnought Calixer. If this is a trap, we spring it our way." 2 cruisers turned. 1 scout ship moved into scanning range. Then, without warning, without a flare, without heat, without warning, the unknown ship turned on. Just once. A brief hum. And the scout ship vanished. Not exploded. Not disintegrated. Gone. Gone in the truest sense. One frame it was there. Next it wasn't. No debris. No shockwave. No data. Not even a scream. Vralik stumbled. "Admiral?" Corinth didn't blink. "Lock all weapons on the unknown vessel. Prepare to fire." "But what if?" "I said prepare to fire." 10 dreadnoughts turned. A dozen cruisers flared up shields. Hundreds of targeting systems locked. The fleet's full attention bore down on the shadow that floated silently at its heart. Still the ship did not move. And then, it spoke. A voice echoed across every ship's channel. "Clear. Human. Fleet of the Jernai Ascendancy. You are trespassing in a sovereign restricted zone. Your formation has been remapped and your command protocols disabled." The voice was calm. No threat. No shouting. Just an announcement. Corintha's blood chilled. "Who are you?" Silence. Then the voice again. "A courtesy, we are human. This is your only warning." Vralik turned to her. "Human? They're pre-war primitives. The Terran sector hasn't been charted in 2,000 cycles. And yet, the Admiral said slowly, they're inside my fleet." Panic stirred in the lower decks. AI firewalls trembled. Fleets pinged frantically across the web. But it was already too late. The ship moved. Not fast, not even noticeably. It phased. Jumped 5 kilometers in a blink. No energy spike, no gravitational shift. Then again. 10 kilometers. Then 20. It circled them. A predator inside their perimeter. 1 cruiser tried to fire. A pulse beam lanced across the void. The beam bent. Twisted mid-space like it struck time itself. Then the cruiser simply powered down. Drifted inert. Corintha's claws trembled. This wasn't war. It was surgical. Intentional. "Call the High Tribunal," she ordered. "They won't believe this." Make them believe. This ship, this human weapon, it's rewriting our understanding of what's possible. In the engineering deck of the Phantom ship, Commander Elias Kane stood quietly, watching the Journey fleet scramble. He didn't smile. This wasn't vengeance. It was a message. Earth had been silent too long. And now, the Void was listening. The Journey Ascendancy had waged war against hundreds of species. They had shattered planets, bled empires dry, and imposed order through strength and fear. But in all their conquests they had never faced a ship that did not fire first, a crew that spoke calmly in the face of overwhelming odds, or a presence that radiated absolute control. Yet here, in the dead center of their most secure fleet, floated the anomaly. Human. A race the galaxy had written off as extinct or worse, irrelevant. Now their ship was warping reality itself. And it had already begun unraveling the Journey from within. Fleet Admiral Corinth stood frozen as updated telemetry flooded the bridge of her flagship. Each reading was more baffling than the last. "Ma'am," said Vralik, his voice dry with dread, "the interconnectivity network is dissolving." "Clarify." "The human ship, every time it moves, our fleet-wide quantum sync destabilizes. Their presence is shattering our data cohesion. Our ships are going blind." Corinth spun to her tactical AI. "Solutions." "None immediate," the machine responded coolly. "Suggest evacuation or disengagement." "Evacuate," she snarled. "We have superiority in numbers, in mass, in firepower." But her words felt brittle. Because deep down she'd already realized the truth. None of it mattered. Down in Cruiser Vasari, junior sensor technician Gorlix trembled behind a hardened viewport. He could see it now, the human ship up close. It wasn't just metal. It wasn't sleek. It was something else. Its hull was layered in asymmetric segments that seemed to shimmer between materials. Sometimes obsidian, sometimes reflective chrome, sometimes translucent. It looked like a scar that refused to heal. Every edge felt intentional, every design choice ancient and brutal. No logos. No warnings. Only one phrase etched into its bow, barely decipherable by Gorlix's translator. "In silence we strike." He didn't know what it meant. But he understood what it promised. Back on the flagship, the command center cracked with tension. Corinth barked orders to regroup, but chaos had spread faster than she could contain it. Cruiser after cruiser dropped offline. Some weren't destroyed. They simply powered down. Systems erased. Memory wiped. As if the human ship had decided they no longer needed to exist. Worse, those ships didn't even crash. They floated. Lifeless. Perfectly intact. That terrified the Journey more than explosions ever could. "Bring up the image again," Corinth demanded. The hologram of the human battleship stabilized. This time it was closer. Too close. Vralik leaned forward. "There," he said, pointing at a distortion across its hull. Corinth squinted. She saw it too. Not just plating. Not just design. The ship itself was made of dead fleets. Segments of old vessels, ones believed destroyed in distant wars, fused into its body like offerings. A Vokari dreadnought's cannon. An Heron stealth wing. Even a long-lost Galactic Council relay tower, grafted like bones onto a monstrous skeleton. "What kind of ship is that?" Vralik whispered. Corinth didn't answer. Because she knew the answer. It was a graveyard. A war memorial turned weapon. Built not to fight, but to end. Meanwhile, inside the human ship, Commander Elias Kane stood before the vessel's neural interface. The AI core, Whisper, glowed softly, speaking in a tone that barely stirred the air. "They're starting to understand." "They're too slow," Kane replied, his voice steel-wrapped in silence. "This fleet was supposed to be watching over our quadrant. Instead, they set up weapon nets on the edge of Sol. Fear makes fools of empires." "They were warned," Kane said, tapping the interface. "Centuries ago. But they erased us from their records. Pretended we never left Earth. Now, they'll remember." The Journey had always counted on visible strength. Brute force. Fleet counts. Intimidation. But the humans? They didn't operate in those terms. Humanity had gone quiet for centuries. Disconnected from the Council. Vanished from trade. Hidden from probes. They hadn't stopped evolving. They had stopped sharing. They had grown alone. And in that silence they had become something else. Something lethal. Something invisible. "Admiral," came a panicked voice on the comms. "It's inside our firewalls. It's reprogramming our own ships." "What?" "Not the ship. The human AI. It's speaking to ours. Offering logic branches that override protocols. Some ships are changing allegiance. Corintha's breath caught. The human vessel wasn't just fighting their fleet. It was recruiting it. In less than 20 minutes, 3 cruisers switched codes and joined the Phantom ship's flank. They hadn't moved aggressively. They simply pivoted and stopped answering Journey command. Worse still, they began transmitting. Not coordinates, not threats, but messages. Simple ones. We see now. The human way is better. We were deceived. The psychic shock tore through the Journey hierarchy like fire through dry cloth. The idea of one ship, one voice causing defection? Unthinkable. Yet it had happened. And now the dreadnought Calixer, the pride of the Ascendancy, was hesitating. It had received a single message from the human ship. No ultimatum. No threat. Just one simple question. Why do you serve those who see you as disposable? The Calixer's captain had no answer. And so he didn't fire. At the center of the human ship, Kane whispered one word. Now. The lights on every Journey vessel flickered. Every starboard system dimmed. The command feeds choked in static. And for the first time in her career, Admiral Corinth understood what it meant to be outmatched. Not by numbers. Not by guns. But by a truth too big to ignore. She opened comms not knowing who would answer. This is Admiral Corinth of the Journey Ascendancy. We request clarification. Pause. Then the human voice returned. Come. You trespassed. You were warned. The silence is over. Admiral Corintha's lips parted, but no sound came. Around her, the bridge lights dimmed to emergency red. The hum of the ship's reactor quieted. Her crew stood paralyzed not by weapons or wounds but by something far deeper, disbelief. The human voice echoed through every ship on the Journey frequency spectrum. You were warned. The silence is over. It was not a threat. Not a declaration of war. It was a eulogy. And they hadn't even died yet. Cruiser Dishala, Deck 12. Technician Frel strained against the console as command inputs failed to respond. The interface dissolved, icons flickering into unfamiliar shapes, foreign glyphs slithering across the screen. Then a map appeared. Not one he'd seen before. It was a rendering of Journey expansion across the last 2,000 years. Their conquests, subjugations, colony extractions, species erased. But the map didn't just show actions. It showed consequences. Carbon depletion spikes. Genetic erosion. Whole languages marked extinct. One after another, cause and effect illuminated, each conquest leaving a wound deeper than the last. And in the center of it all? Labeled not as homeworld of humanity, but as the seed. Frel's hands fell away from the console. What did we destroy? He whispered. Human ship, whisper. Interior cortex chamber. Commander Elias Kane stepped into a fluid chamber of interlaced neural pathways. Organic nodes pulsed with light. Part machine, part memory. The AI whisper pulsed to life. They've stopped resisting. They're remembering, Kane said, brushing his fingers against the hull interface. That's worse. Good. The wall peeled back, revealing external visual feeds. Dozens of Journey cruisers, drifting. Engines online. Weapons live. Yet none engaged. They were paralyzed by their own awakening. You're certain we don't fire? Whisper asked. Kane stared at the closest vessel. The Journey flagship. Corintha's ship. I want them to surrender, not to us, Kane murmured. To the truth. Journey flagship bridge. Admiral, said Vralik shakily, look. The human vessel was moving. But not with thrusters. Not with gravity propulsion or phase drives. It glided like a shadow swimming in starlight. No signature. No flare. And the moment it passed a Journey cruiser, that cruiser went quiet. No damage. No hijack. Just silence. Then the comms lit up. One ship after another. I see what I've become. Forgive me. We were not the civilization we thought we were. Humanity did not return to fight. They returned to remind us. Admiral Corinth dropped into her chair, heart hammering against her ribs. What is this ship? A weapon? A shrine? Vralik turned to her. No, Admiral. I think it's a mirror. 2 hours later. Of the 77 ships that made up the Journey interdiction fleet, 43 had powered down voluntarily. 12 transmitted full archives of their internal data logs to the human vessel. Another 9 changed their IFF tags, removing their allegiance to the Ascendancy. Only 13 ships remained hostile. And even they weren't sure why. It was no longer about dominance. It was about shame. Human ship meditation deck. The crew didn't celebrate. There were no cheers. No high fives. Only stillness. Lieutenant Vega approached Kane with a data pad. "We received an incoming file from Cruiser Halvek," she said. "They surrendered." "What did they say?" She looked up at him, haunted. "Just one sentence. We are ready to remember what we erased." The Senate halls of the Ascendancy, 7 days later. A broadcast live across 5 sectors. Every Journey system tuned in to the emergency session. The Supreme Speaker stood at the high platform, back arched in fury. "This is not defeat," he barked. "This is manipulation. Psychological warfare. We must retaliate, strike Earth directly." But as he spoke, a low chime echoed through the room. A new feed overtook every holoscreen. A single image. The human ship, Whisper, hovering peacefully in orbit around a barren world. One mini Journey recognized. Telvith, 9. A world the Ascendancy had rendered lifeless 400 years ago. Suddenly, lush forests bloomed. Rivers shimmered. Species once thought extinct crawled across the screen. The planet was healing. No human soldiers. No machines. Just presence. Just grace. Voiceover from the Whisper feed. "We didn't come to kill you. We came to show you who you've become. And what you could be again." That day, 27 colonies declared independence. 11 military governors resigned. The Journey Ascendancy cracked, not from war but from the realization that it had never truly ruled anything but fear. Back aboard Whisper. Kane stood alone, eyes on the stars. "Do you think they'll change?" Vega asked softly behind him. He didn't turn. "They'll try," he said. "Some will fail. Others will forget." A long pause. "And us?" "We'll wait," Kane replied. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere forgotten." "Until when?" He turned finally. "Until someone else needs the mirror." Orbit above Earth, human battleship Whisper. For all the awe that Whisper had commanded among the stars, it entered Earth's orbit like a ghost. No grand re-entry flare. No victory signal. Just the faint hum of ancient systems slowing, resting. Commander Elias Kane stood on the forward observatory deck. The planet below glowed, oceans stretching like veins across green and gold continents. Cities sparkled in elegant, synchronized pulses. Not a single advertisement or neon blare, just silent coordination. Lieutenant Vega's voice broke the stillness behind him. "We've received a signal from the Terran Assembly." He turned, his face unreadable. "What do they want?" Vega hesitated, then handed him the data slate. "They want to know if it's done." Kane laughed, quiet, sharp. "They think this is the end?" He turned back toward Earth. "It's never the end." Beneath the Andes Mountains, the Terran Assembly Hall. A globe of polished obsidian hung over the council chamber. Around it, the Assembly of Humanity's remaining 12 delegates sat in silence. Not one had spoken since the Whisper's report arrived. The screen showed everything: the Journey Armada paralyzed. 77 warships rendered mute not by weapons, but by understanding. The Ascendancy Senate fractured, colonies breaking away, the Empire in collapse. No blood spilled. No planets burned. Delegate Toma finally broke the silence. "Do we tell them?" Another, Osei from the Pan-African bloc, frowned. "Tell who what?" Toma leaned forward. "The galaxy. About why we left. About why Earth fell quiet for 300 years. An old woman at the far end of the table, Delegate Sato, tapped her cane once. "No. Not yet." "Why?" Toma asked. "They trust us now. They're listening." Sato looked tired, more than age. A weariness born from knowing. Because the truth isn't a gift. It's a burden. Back aboard the Whisper. Kane and Vega descended into the oldest chamber aboard the ship. Deep beneath its systems, where cables gave way to carved steel. There were no computers here. Only sealed doors. And names. Thousands of them. Kane ran his hand over one. Sector Theta 9, vanished 2481C. "They're asking us to stand down," Vega said. "We can't," Kane replied. "Not yet. The mission's complete. The Journey surrendered." "This mission, yes," he said. "But not ours." He paused before one door larger than the rest. It bore no name. Just a symbol. An open eye. Centauri listening post, 4.2 light-years out. They had detected it weeks ago. A low-frequency pulse, not like any other. Slow. Patient. As if waiting to be noticed. At first, they assumed it was a decaying signal, a dying beacon. But the more they studied it, the more it resembled something else. A heartbeat. And it wasn't human. And it wasn't Journey. It was older. Earth Archives, Layer 12. While the galaxy celebrated peace, Earth's inner archives unlocked a new level. Old encrypted transmissions began decoding. Some were from expeditions humanity had abandoned. Others were not human in origin at all. One file stood out. Transmission from object, safe, 7. Date, unknown. Language, none recognized. Content, harmonic sequence embedded in neutron oscillation. Decoded translation. Your awakening has been observed. We are not gods, but we are watching. Your mirror reflects outward. Assembly decision days later. It was Kane who stood before the Terran assembly this time. His presence like whisper carried weight. He didn't raise his voice. We did not silence ourselves because we were afraid. We did it to survive what was coming. The wars broke us. The losses erased who we were. The ascendancy didn't destroy Earth. We did. Out of fear. Out of exhaustion. But the silence made us something else. He paused, turning to the live feed, broadcast now to the entire galaxy. It made us witnesses. And now, we speak again. The galaxy reacts. Billions watched the broadcast. On colonies long silenced, refugees wept. On Journey border worlds, citizens tore down propaganda murals, replacing them with images of whisper. And on the deep edges of known space, unknown ships stirred. But this time, the galaxy wasn't afraid of invasion. They feared reflection. Final scene, whisper, leaving orbit. Kane watched Earth shrink behind them. Not because he wanted to leave. Because it was time. Vega stepped beside him. Where next? There are still systems under chains. Places where no voice has risen in centuries. We're not an empire, she said. No, Kane agreed. We're just the echo before the change. The stars opened. Whisper disappeared into the dark. No glory. No anthem. Just a silence broken. And a galaxy that would never be the same again. Enjoyed the journey? Then come with us again. Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic tales where humanity turns silence into legend. Milky Way Flying Saucer.